Welcome to Women Investing in Women. Robin and I are truly thrilled and excited to bring you another episode. And today is especially interesting because we're coming from 3 different places, 3 different countries, and I'm going to let Robin talk about where she is. But as we get started, it's very important for us as women, as we lift each other up and invest in each other, to take the time and heal ourselves, heal our wounds, heal our traumas, and become the whole person we are meant to be, so that we are free to live our life, to fulfill our purpose and shine our light, to share it with everybody and light up the lives of other women. And today, we are going to be talking to Sophie Rouméas, joining us from France, who does this work to help women heal and help women connect with their soul to truly transform themselves in their journey to help transform life and their purpose. Sophie, welcome. Welcome to Women Investing in Women.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Such a joy and pleasure and an honor. You and I go way back. We are co-authors. We do things together. What I'm excited about today, Sophie, is for you to share with our audience how you got to a place where you realized you have to honor and facilitate your family and respect what they have given you because you stand on their shoulders. But at the same time, carve your own path and be authentic to yourself and connect with your inner being. How has that journey come about, and what have you learned from that?
Well, I'll try to make it as short as possible to explain it. I realized a certain time in my life, I was already a mother of 2 sons. My 2 sons were teenagers. And I realized that I had influences inside of me and I could not recognize my own way of thinking. And I felt, what is driving my bus? You know, if I take a metaphor of a bus as life, what is really driving my bus? And I realized that maybe not only my own thinking was driving my bus. So I took some classes to understand what is the influence, outside influence, that can lead us to take decisions, to make choices that may not be completely aligned with the real soul and our heart. And I realized that there is a whole work named psychogenealogy, or some people call it the transgenerational work, that can have so many shapes as a therapy. And it helps me so much. I realized that it was my path. So I took classes. I had the great chance to meet amazing people, amazing masters, and they helped me to understand the influence, the impact, invisible education, I call it, from our family story on us. We have a very positive impact, and sometimes we may have some beliefs that have to be transformed to help us to be really free, to be in tune with our own soul.
You know, that's very interesting. And those of you who have watched our podcast before, you will clearly see that I am not standing in front of or sitting in front of my lovely bookcase. I am in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I'm at the International Positive Psychology Association conference. So it's very interesting that we're talking about things of a psychological nature. And I'll just say briefly, when I was doing some counseling myself, and the therapist had me do a genogram of, you know, similar to what you're saying, a genealogy chart, but from an emotional and psychological standpoint. It's like, oh, my family's really screwed up. No wonder I have, issues. But they're also very a lot of strength. So it's very clear that The first question, I'll pose various questions throughout the conversation, but is what gave you the strength, to the emotional strength, to be willing to go back and look at some of those issues, to look at what are some issues my mother, grandmother, great-grandmother had that is impacting me from many, many generations? What gave you the impetus and the strength to say, I'm going to do this work?
That's a great question, because it can be so many details in the life when we realize that we are impacted by our ancestors, by our parents, and the other members of the family. And there were different details. There was one detail. One of my aunts from my father's side had breast cancer. And I was very young when she received her diagnosis. She was already in her early 50s. And I was shocked. I was under 10 years old and I was listening to the adults, and I realized that it was a not easy illness. And she was very good until 95. So she was able to be under remission. But her story had an impact on me. And at one point, I had very close friends who also had breast cancer. And I was asking myself, because their own aunt also had breast cancer. And I realized that sometimes we may have this, what we call in our head. It doesn't mean this is the reality, physical reality. We may have what we call hidden loyalties. It always comes from love. But love sometimes can take a shape which is not the healthiest one for us as an individual person. So this was one of the details. And then there would be other details from my family. I was, as a mother, I wanted to stop some, let's say, some shames of a family, to make sure my children may not carry any burden from me or from my ancestors. In Europe, there was war. In many countries, we have conflicts from the past generations. It may give some beliefs, it may give some, let's say, some ways of thinking. We realize they have an impact on us. And at some point, we realize we can take the best out of our ancestors and honor them. And in the same time, it is okay also to transform what has to be, to not carry beliefs that are no longer needed or even not healthy for us. So these two things helped me. I really wanted so that my children can be as free as possible from difficult family impact.
That is so insightful and so thoughtful on your part, both for yourself, for your children, in terms of how you are impacting everything, Sophie. So fast forward, you are healing yourself, you are transforming yourself in terms of getting you to a place where you know you need to be. But at the same time, you were raising your kids and you were helping others. So talk to us about how you were able to take this and invest in lifting other women up. And in that process, how did your journey get enriched? Because you can't give something to somebody and not feel blessed and fulfilled and lifted up right inside your soul, right? So how did that whole giving and growing process work for you?
Well, thank you for this question. Well, when I was 13, somehow I was connecting with nature. I mean, it maybe seems strange to say it, but I was really with nature. And I was watching the moon and the stars. And at one point, something, probably like an inner voice or an outside voice, depending on the beliefs, but let's say there was a guiding voice telling me, one day, what your emotions, the difficulties you feel right now, they will be helping. They will be helping, you will be able to talk about it, and you will be helping people. So it stuck with me unconsciously, I had this moment, I just forgot about it. And many years later, I was so in my late 30s when I changed my professional life. And I realized that was my calling. My calling was because I met some kind of difficulties and I saw people having difficulties, and I felt because I met so great people who helped me to transform myself, I felt, now that's my turn. So when I had my first family constellation, I had a great chance to be with one of the masters named Bert Hellinger. He's from Germany. He passed away when he was 94 years old. So it was a few years ago, but I had a great chance to be, in contact with him and his wife and many of the people who were here to work on themselves and on their, let's say, their bigger, like society or countries, even countries. So when I felt what is the field of information, I felt that's my thing. And I really felt a huge calling to help people to understand the hidden loyalty and the hidden education from our family story.
It's really interesting that the angle that you've taken this. What comes to mind is it's very typically when we're doing any kind of healing work and therapy work, we focus on, what went wrong and, how was I, what was the generational trauma? And that's very, very true. There is generational trauma that we need to look at and address and, face head on and deal with, acknowledge. In addition, there are also, I believe, generational strengths. And have you found a way, or how do you find a way to balance acknowledging, yes, there is generational trauma, and there's also generational strengths. Like in my family, Laura, my great grandparents left the coal mines of Scotland, and came to America. And so there's a lot of perseverance, a lot of strength, a lot of stick-to-itiveness in my bloodline. So how do you find in doing your work with people to, acknowledge, yes, here's this generational trauma, there's these generational patterns that are not healthy, not useful anymore for me. What are the generational strengths that I can tap into?
Oh yeah, that's a great insight. It's like, when we see the clouds in the sky, there are clouds, but the sun is always behind the clouds. So at one point we may want to, work on the clouds in our life, and then we can access the healing energy of the sun. So if the sun become the strength in life. So sometimes because we work, some people usually they need to be seen as with their difficulties. When they are recognized with their traumas, it's easier then to access the positivity of the family story. Until we took care of it, when we really see them, we acknowledge, we say, I see you, I understand, you went through a lot. Then after that, we work, and it gives access to being capable to understand and receive and honor the strength of the family. So for some people, this is really first to work on what gave them pain, pain, physical, emotional, spiritual pain. And then it is easier to access the strength. And so I don't know if it does answer to your question.
Yeah, that totally gets it. I totally agree with that. You have to acknowledge, the pain and the suffering, the trauma, and then go on from there. So I totally appreciate what you just said.
But to build on that, Sophie, what's coming to me is a lot of times when people try to heal by having these moments with their families to understand and put things in perspective. Not all families are open to meeting the person there and dealing with it. Some families are in total denial. They gaslight the family member, meaning they deny everything that this person has been through. It has never been real. It's all in their head. There's something wrong with them. So when you are helping women go through this journey now, how are you guiding them to deal with that particular scenario? Because being able to deal with that for most women is a necessary step to get to their journey.
Yeah, that's great. So I can take an example coming to me right now. During a family constellation, so they are not, the ancestors are not physically present. Some people may even be already, passed away. Some people are still alive, but they will never get to do this work. So we will work on the perception of the person with whom we have a session. So this, it's like be the change you want to see in the world. So it starts first inside of us. We work on our own perception, our own chaos, and to put into order our inner chaos and our perception. And then, so with a family constellation specifically, we can still represent, so the ancestors or the members of the family who are not present. And because we are able to use the energy of other people representing, so this is a group work. We can also make one-on-one sessions, but it's usually a group work. So it helps to see in the eyes of other people the emotions we maybe never access from the real person in our life. Let's say for the lady I'm thinking about, at one point we had to represent her parents, but also one of her uncles. One of her uncles who went through World War II, between Swiss and Germany, not France, between Swiss and Germany. And so this uncle really suffered a lot from, he was hungry, so lack of food. So when, after war, there was no food, his wife had to take care of herself, with children. So the lack of food, the hunger for that sticked into, let's say, almost in the DNA, it became then the memory of themselves in their life. That was passed from one generation to another generation. And when the lady realized that this behavior was still going on in her life, she was afraid of a lack of money. She was afraid of being hungry. So she needed to feed herself more than she was really in need. But the program was still running on in her mind. So we had to recompose somehow the puzzle of her uncle, and then she can access the understanding. And the understanding was then helping her to change her internal hidden belief about what she really needed, and to transform the relationship with food and also with money. But first for her was also with food. So that's a kind of example.
Mm-hmm.
That's really amazing, and I've heard of those kinds of instances and examples, and so I really appreciate you bringing that up. Tying a very concrete way how the past is directly impacting the present, and binding us to the past instead of living a more full present. One of the things I always love to ask our guests is, what are some of the challenges that you have faced, either internally or externally, in bringing forth your work and doing what you do? What are some of the challenges that you've faced, and how have you dealt with them?
Oh, that's a great one. Well, first is to analyze and to help the person, and then for ourselves to also understand what is the first step to take. Because, there are so many ways we can, help the person, but we need to find the first step that will be helpful for the person in the present moment. We can work on many issues, but to me, for me, the therapy is like a puzzle. So every piece of a puzzle is important. We all need all of them, but maybe there is one piece that will be helping to find the other ones easier, and to assembly, one specific image of a puzzle. That is the first step for the person being willing to continue the therapy. So this is to analyze what is the most important first step. It doesn't mean it is the biggest first step, but what is the access for a person to go into herself, that she may not be afraid to face the reality of her life. And so sometimes, again, it can be a small step, but this one will be helping all the other steps. Therapy is not a 1 hour journey that will be lying. So, and it may also not be only one therapeutic tool sometimes, but every step counts along the way. So how can I help in the present moment the person to make one step, the one she needs to take right now?
That is so specific and so powerful. Thank you, Sophie. So as I am hearing you explain this, what I call the ancestral memory, right? The generational memory. I grew up in Sri Lanka with elephants. And one of the things one learns when you live in a society alongside elephants, elephants not only have ancestral memory, they actually live with it. And one of the rules of engagement in a society that cohabits with elephants, you never build in the path of elephants, because they know as the cycle of the universe changes, every 50 years, every 100 years, certain things shift. And they know the path their ancestors took to where the water was or where the food was and where their basic needs are met. And if you ever build in the path of elephants, they will walk through whatever you built.
Wow.
And so unlike any other society where you can encroach on the animal kingdom and take jungle land and take uninhabited land and make it into construction sites to build homes, in a country where you have elephants, you can't do that. Because it's not a natural disaster you have to worry about. It's about elephants reclaiming their path to their survival. And so to me, it's resonating at so many levels, because it's not just humans, right? Every creature is capable of having that ancestral memory. So do you want to talk briefly about how any creature, any of us have this, if we only took the time to tap into it? And somebody like you guiding us is the way, as humans, we can, because we have lost touch to be that present, unlike the elephants.
Oh, this is so sweet as an example. And I love elephants. And they are animals, they are also good masters and very wise masters for us, like nature. Indeed, when we take the time to observe nature, to get ourselves outside the daily life, outside the screens, outside the technology, we realize that nature is a whole technology by itself. The AI, the augmented reality, I would say, we can also find augmented reality in nature. This is another kind of reality, but this the reality of wisdom, of being feet on the ground. Okay, I have one example coming to me. We have 3 cats at home. And there would be a first cat, and then another will arrive, 2 girls. And then a few years later, a third one, a boy. His name is Loki. And when we had to let the young cat, Loki, going out for the first time, he didn't know anything about it. He was not from the region. We adopted him because he was without family, but he was from another region. And then, so we were afraid he may not find his way, the path outside, and how will he get lost? Will he know how to come back to home? It's a building, there is a forest, there are other animals. And then there was one out of the 2 other cats, her name is Lily. She took him under her protection and she showed him the way, how to get out, how to come back to home. So she was helping him, to find his way, and she was educating him, even if he was not from the same blood family, but same species, and they found the way to be. So it was a matter of resilience, observation, and compassion. So exactly like us human, what is helping us is compassion, resilience, and demonstration. Let's say teaching, right? What can I teach to someone, or what can I learn from someone? In these cats, I've found the perfect example watching them. Her patience she developed day after day to show him the ways around the house and the forest. That was for me a beautiful example from how other species can teach us our way back to help each other.
Yeah, that's an amazing example that you gave, and so appropriate for the topic of guiding and healing and someone helping someone else. And that's exactly what you're doing. It's always hard to believe that these 25, 30 minutes always zooms by faster than we think. And we usually always ask our guests, what's a golden nugget you want to share with the audience? And we're talking previously that you write poetry, and how beautiful is that? And so we were going to ask you to share one of your poems with us as a golden nugget.
Oh, well, so there is one thing coming. Sometimes it's easier to be outside of ourselves than to be inside of ourselves, because we may be afraid of our garden. Maybe we may think this is empty, or maybe we may think this is not nice, or this is too chaotic. But there is no escape. We cannot escape going inside of us. So to me, it took some time to really be willing to go inside of me. It took mindfulness and a lot of practice and some healing also. And now this is probably what I would like to share. And if we have time to share one poem, why not? I would be so glad and honored. But that is, we cannot escape to come inside of ourselves and to work on our inner garden. So no matter what time it may take, when we are inside of it, we will find beauty for sure.
That is such a beautiful image you just painted, Sophie. So please go ahead and read your poem, because I believe that would be a beautiful way to anchor all the women who are listening, so that everybody can feel lifted up in the way that you help us bring this to a close.
Thank you. So this is a poem from a book named Souls in Love that we wrote with my partner in poetry and life. So I may not be able to show you the book. So the book is named Souls in Love. This is, we have 42 poems in it. And so I chose one poem for today, for all the women that you represent. I thank you so much to be here with you. I have a special intention for your audience, and I wish, ladies, to come inside of all of you and, take your creativity, bring it to the world. The world is waiting for your creativity. So the title named Humanity's Shadow. 3 ways can prevent me from appreciating you: being out of tune with my femininity, being a prisoner of my past and family story, not perceiving the purity of your love. I'd like to find the antidote to these 3 possible shadows in the world. I commit to looking into my own personal ones without makeup, without trembling. I was born a full woman, connected to the moon and its tidal phases. From my cycles, emotions are born. When I dare to be mind, body, and spirit, I am not afraid of my hurly-burly fluctuations. I become a temple to welcome the flowers of your passion. I carry past sorrows and joys, those of my lineage of women and men. From them, I also received the gift of transmutation. Life grants wisdom and clarity. I am offered the choice to activate my comprehension and get away from the helter-skelter incarnations. Embracing my ancestors becomes the answer. I am then free and whole in our becoming. You, the man I've chosen, whom I feel chosen by. I receive and love you in acceptance that your humanity is the same as mine. you are also the fruit of two opposite stars. Equidistant from Earth to the divine, I am moving my center of gravity towards you. Love still is the answer.
That is absolutely beautiful. And when every woman understands and embraces that love is the answer, she becomes the light from which that entire sphere that she occupies starts shining bright. And that light passes on to everybody.